Most people think grief looks like tears, trembling hands, silence. But her grief looked like a red dress, a bold smile, and music loud enough to shake the stained glass windows. The pastor thought it was beautiful. Her friends thought it was brave. But the coroner thought it was suspicious. Because 3 days later, his toxicology report revealed something no one could explain. A drug he'd never been prescribed. A substance not even traceable in his home. And now, the same woman who turned grief into celebration is the center of an investigation. Today, we're breaking down the signs most people missed. The performance, the letter, and the single, missing vial that could unravel everything. This isn't just a story about death. It's about joy, as a cover for something darker. Her name was Evelyn Brown. To anyone watching from the outside, Evelyn was just another woman sitting in the second pew of New Light Baptist Church, well-dressed, soft-spoken, and polite. But behind that calm exterior was a woman who had survived hell. She met her husband, James, when she was just 17. He was 19. They married in secret with borrowed rings, under a tree behind his grandmother's house. Their families didn't approve. Her parents called her reckless. His family said she was too dark. Still, they ran toward each other. Because love, for them, was the only thing that made sense. James was a factory worker. Evelyn worked nights at a nursing home. They shared a one-bedroom apartment with mold on the ceiling and cockroaches under the fridge. On nights they couldn't afford dinner, they held each other and prayed the hunger would pass. They survived racism. James once came home with a split lip after a white co-worker accused him of stealing his lunch. Evelyn saw her boss give raises to everyone but her. They filed complaint after complaint. Nothing changed. Then came the eviction notice, 2 months behind on rent. Evelyn cried on the front porch while James packed their things. They lived in their car for a week. She never forgot the feeling of sleeping with her head against the window, her husband's arm around her shoulder, whispering, "We're gonna get through this." They had each other. That was enough. On James's 30th birthday, they didn't have a cake. Just a candle Evelyn stuck into a slice of bread. She sang happy birthday anyway. He cried when she handed him a card she'd made from torn notebook paper. When Evelyn got sick, stage 2 breast cancer, James shaved his head so she wouldn't feel alone. He went with her to every chemo appointment. Even when he had to miss work. Even when they didn't have enough gas money to get there. He was her peace in a world that gave her none. And then, in the spring of 2022, James died. A sudden stroke. No warning. Evelyn collapsed at the hospital when the doctor told her he was gone. Everything changed. After James's death, Evelyn clung to the only thing she had left, faith. She started attending New Light Baptist every Sunday. Pastor David Simmons, tall and charismatic, took notice. So did the church secretary, Grace Carter, a young, bubbly woman half Evelyn's age. The congregation wrapped around her. People brought casseroles. The women's ministry helped clean her apartment. Evelyn called them her new family. But some said they felt a tension. People whispered that Grace and Pastor David were closer than they should be. Then came the announcement, Grace was pregnant. The church erupted in applause. A blessing from God, Pastor David declared. Evelyn was the first to hug Grace. She offered to help raise the baby. No one suspected a thing, yet. A month later, someone in the congregation asked a quiet question. Who's the father? Grace smiled and said, "It's not important." Pastor David laughed it off. But Evelyn noticed something strange. Grace was wearing the pastor's watch at choir practice. She said it was a gift for helping organize a fundraiser. Evelyn didn't push. But the inconsistencies started piling up. One day, she walked into Pastor David's office and saw a half-burnt letter in the trash. Her eyes caught a few words. "We can't keep hiding this. I'm tired of the lies." The signature? G. Grace. Then came the night Evelyn heard crying through the thin church walls. She followed the sound and saw Grace, sobbing in the stairwell, clutching her belly, whispering. He said he'd leave her. He promised. Who was he? She started asking questions. First to Grace. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" Grace smiled, but her eyes darted away. "I'm fine. Just tired." Then to Deacon Joseph. Was Pastor David married? A pause. Then, he was. But his wife left, a few years ago. No one talks about it. Online, Evelyn found an old article. Wife of local pastor files restraining order. What? The story said Pastor David's wife, Lila, accused him of emotional manipulation and coercive control. The church claimed it was a lie. Lila disappeared soon after. Evelyn felt something shift. The warmth in Pastor David's sermons? The way he always looked her straight in the eyes? It wasn't kindness. It was calculation. She remembered the way Grace flinched when he put a hand on her back. How he always joked that women in the Bible knew their place. Evelyn wasn't just suspicious now. She was scared. 2 weeks later, Grace went into labor. The baby, a little girl, had David's eyes. The resemblance was uncanny. The congregation didn't dare ask, but Evelyn did. In private, she begged Grace. Tell the truth. For her sake. And Grace finally broke. She confessed that Pastor David was the father. He'd promised to leave the church, to marry her. But when she got pregnant, he threatened her instead. He said I'd lose everything if I spoke up. He said God would punish me. Evelyn comforted her. And then, without telling anyone, she bought a DNA test. Swabbed Grace. Swabbed the baby. And, here's the twist. It didn't match. Pastor David wasn't the father. Grace was stunned. So was Evelyn. Are you sure? Grace whispered. She was. Evelyn ran the test 3 times through an independent service. The answer was the same. Pastor David couldn't be the father. But Grace had never been with anyone else. That's what she swore. She was adamant, scared, yes, but honest. So how? Evelyn dug deeper. She demanded answers. That's when Grace broke down again, this time sobbing uncontrollably. There was something, one night. I don't remember it clearly. I was dizzy. He gave me something to help me sleep. I woke up. I was bleeding. He said I must have had a miscarriage. But she never had. Evelyn's stomach turned. What if the baby didn't come from a relationship? What if Grace had been assaulted? Evelyn tried to go to the police. The report mysteriously disappeared. The officer who took it suddenly transferred. She contacted a journalist. Her email account was hacked 2 days later. New Light Baptist went quiet. Pastor David's sermons grew darker. He started preaching about wolves in sheep's clothing and those who stir trouble among the faithful. People whispered that Evelyn had lost her mind. But she hadn't. She was closer to the truth than anyone wanted her to be. And then, she received an envelope at her door. No return address. Inside, a photograph of Grace. Sleeping. Half-dressed. And in the corner of the frame, clearly visible, was a hand. Wearing Pastor David's watch. Evelyn stared at the photo. Her hands trembled. There was no going back now. She packed a bag. Left her lights off. Slept with a knife under her pillow. Because someone had broken into her apartment that night. Nothing was stolen. But the picture was gone. And on the mirror, written in red lipstick. Stop digging. But Evelyn won't stop. Not now. Not when a baby's future, and a church's darkest secret, are on the line. It was a Thursday. Evelyn was folding laundry when the phone rang. The voice on the other end was calm. Too calm. We need you to come to the hospital. James had collapsed on his way to work. Massive stroke. He never woke up. Just like that, the only man who ever made her feel safe, gone. At the hospital, she ran past the nurses. She clutched his hand even though it was already cold. Her voice cracked as she whispered. Please wake up. Please. I don't know how to be without you. But James wasn't coming back. The funeral came fast. Family surrounded her, offering casseroles and Bible verses. Everyone expected her to break down. To scream. To cry. To collapse. Instead, Evelyn sat there. Completely still. Her black dress hung off her like loose skin. Her hands never stopped shaking. She stared at the closed casket for 5 hours. Didn't blink. Didn't speak. Like she was frozen in time. Or waiting for something, anything, to make this real. Her sister leaned in and whispered, "Let it out, Evelyn." But she couldn't. Because the pain was too big for tears. This wasn't just grief. It was everything. The cancer, the eviction, the years of struggle. All of it. Compressed into a single silent scream inside her chest. After the funeral, she started seeing things. A man in a white truck parked across the street for hours. Phone calls with no one on the other end. James's voicemail was wiped from her phone. The last recording of his voice, gone. She told herself it was the grief, the shock, that she was imagining things. But then she got the anonymous letter. Folded neatly, no stamp, just slid under her door. You don't know the half of it. Watch your back. It wasn't signed. And the handwriting was oddly feminine. Evelyn started locking every door. Triple-checking every window. She didn't feel safe. Not even in her own home. One night, around 3 a.m., she heard the creak of her front step. Soft footsteps. Then, silence. The next morning, she found muddy boot prints on her back porch. Right under her bedroom window. She called the police. They took a report. But they didn't investigate. Probably a raccoon, the officer joked. But raccoons don't wear size 12 boots. 2 weeks after the funeral, she opened James's nightstand drawer for the first time since he died. Tucked beneath a stack of old bills, she found a torn envelope. Inside was a receipt. Dated 6 days before his death. From a pawn shop. He'd pawned his wedding ring. James would have never sold that ring. Never. She checked their bank account. Over $2,000 had been withdrawn. Cash. No record of where it went. Why? What had he gotten into? And why hadn't he told her? Then came the call. It was from a blocked number. Evelyn almost didn't answer. Static. Then a voice. A woman's voice. Soft. Scared. He was trying to protect you. He knew. That's why they killed him. Click. No callback number. No trace. She played it over and over. That voice didn't just sound scared. It sounded familiar. 2 days later, Pastor David showed up at her door. Smiling. Polished. He held a bouquet of cheap supermarket flowers. We've been praying for you, Sister Evelyn. She let him in. Something in her stomach turned when he sat in James's old recliner. They talked for 15 minutes. Mostly scripture. Mostly surface. But then he looked her straight in the eye and said, "Some things are best left in God's hands. Don't go searching where He's already closed the door." It wasn't advice. It was a warning. That night, Evelyn found James's old backpack in the back of their closet. Tucked inside was a small black notebook. He never kept a journal. At least, that's what she thought. Most of the pages were empty. Except one. Something's wrong with the church. I saw him. I know what he did. I just need proof. If anything happens to me, it wasn't an accident. There was no name. No date. But Evelyn knew exactly who he was. Evelyn closed the notebook with shaking hands. Outside, thunder cracked. Rain slammed against the windows. She checked the locks. Then she saw it. A single rose. Sitting on her porch. Wrapped in black ribbon. Just like the one they placed on James's casket. Her hands trembled. There was someone out there. Watching. Waiting. It was supposed to be a quiet, respectable church funeral. Just scripture. Flowers. A soft hymn. But Evelyn hadn't said a word in days. Not to the pastor. Not to her family. Not even to her best friend, Marcia, who flew in from Georgia just to hold her hand. Church elders huddled near the altar, whispering. Should we cancel the service? She's not responding. This isn't normal grief. Then Evelyn turned her head. Looked Pastor David dead in the eye. And whispered. Play his favorite music. Don't cry for him, dance for him. At first, they thought she was hallucinating. Too broken to think straight. But Evelyn stood. Walked to the side room. And when she came back, she wasn't wearing black anymore. She changed into a bold red dress. The one James loved. The one she hadn't worn since their 10th anniversary. Her hair was tied back. Her lipstick dark. And in that quiet room of mourners, she did the unthinkable. She asked for a microphone. A beat dropped over the church speakers. It wasn't gospel. It was Earth, Wind and Fire. James's favorite band. His favorite song, September. Evelyn raised the mic and said. He danced through every storm. He laughed when there was nothing to laugh about. He lived in joy. So today, we won't mourn him, we'll honor him the way he would have wanted. Then she danced. A slow sway at first. Then a full spin. Her dress flowing, her eyes wild. Some guests cried harder. Some stood and walked out in silent protest. But others? They joined her. Clapping. Swaying. Holding hands. A funeral turned celebration. A moment no one would ever forget. Marcia leaned over to the organist, whispering. This don't feel right. Not like grief. More like a performance. And she wasn't wrong. Because even as Evelyn danced, even as tears streamed down her cheeks, she kept glancing at someone in the third row. A man in a gray suit. Mid-40s. Sharp jawline. Clean-shaven. No one recognized him. And when the music stopped, he was gone. After the service, Pastor David pulled Evelyn aside. "What was that?" "Closure," she said. "That wasn't closure. That was a message." She didn't answer. Just smiled. Cold. Knowing. Pastor David didn't sleep that night. He called someone. A burner phone. We know because his call logs disappeared the next day. Whatever Evelyn had done, it rattled him. That night, Evelyn tore apart the linen closet. Behind an old showbox was what she was looking for. A brown envelope labeled HYMNS 2007. But inside? Photographs. Grainy. Poorly lit. But clear enough. Photos of men in church robes. Sneaking into a motel. Meeting in parked cars. Counting cash in a church office. And one photo, torn in half, showed a child. Maybe 6 years old. Face blurred. The word insurance was scribbled on the back. Evelyn spent the next 3 days at the library. Old newspapers. Police records. She wasn't just grieving anymore. She was digging. And then she found it. A boy named Caleb Mason. Disappeared in 2007. Last seen attending Sunday school. At her church. The case was cold. No suspects. No leads. Just a grieving single mother who moved away in silence. Caleb was never found. And the Sunday school teacher at the time? Was James. Evelyn didn't want to believe it. She drove to the woman's last known address, 4 hours away. Caleb's mother answered the door. Eyes hollow. Voice flat. He said it was an accident. Who? Your husband. Evelyn's chest locked. You're lying. He came to me. Years later. Crying. Said Caleb saw something he wasn't supposed to. Said the church made him disappear. Said he didn't know until it was too late. The woman shut the door. Just like that. But Evelyn didn't cry. She couldn't. Because deep down, she knew. Evelyn returned home. Searched James's old work bag. Nothing. Then she flipped over the lining, and there it was. Taped underneath. A small, silver flash drive. She plugged it in. Video files. Dozens. Surveillance footage. Audio clips. Hidden phone recordings. The first clip? James. Sitting in a parked car. Whispering. If you're watching this, they know. And if they know, I'm probably dead. Evelyn dropped the flash drive. The screen went black. Outside, the same white truck was parked across the street. Its engine still running. Inside it, the man in the gray suit stared through her window. He wasn't smiling. He was holding something. A church program. With James's photo on the cover. And on the back? Written in thick red marker. You're next. Even after the music faded. Even after the clapping stopped. You could still feel it in the walls. The tension. Old Deacon sat with crossed arms. The First Lady stared straight ahead. A child in the third pew whispered, "Why is she smiling?" Evelyn adjusted the mic. Her heels clicked softly on the altar floor. She looked calm. Too calm. Then she said, "This man gave me life when the world tried to kill my joy." And just like that, the room froze again. "We cried enough when he was alive," she said, voice steady. "We cried in emergency rooms. We cried over pink slips and eviction notices. We cried in courtrooms while folks smiled at our pain." She held up a folded, creased envelope. "Before he died, he gave me this. Told me not to open it unless the world got too quiet." She opened the letter. Her fingers shook. Her voice didn't. "Promise me," she read. "You'll give me the kind of send-off white folks never expect a black man to get, Joy." People gasped. Someone said amen. Others stood and walked out again. But Evelyn didn't flinch. Because she wasn't done. He didn't just want joy, Evelyn said. He wanted freedom. Then she turned. Looked at Pastor David. He said, "Don't bury me in sorrow. Bury me in truth." You could feel the air shift. One woman clutched her pearls. Another crossed herself. And the man in the gray suit? Back again. Last row. Silent. She looked right at him. "You know what he meant." James had always been quiet. But in his last weeks, he got paranoid. Started locking the doors twice. Double-checking the bank accounts. Recording phone calls. Evelyn thought it was just stress. But now? Now she understood. In the second part of the letter, James wrote, "They'll say it was natural. They'll say it was God's time. But baby, if something happens to me, look deeper." That's when Evelyn paused, took a breath, and dropped the mic, literally. Gasps. Shouting. A few claps. Pastor David stood up fast, tried to take the mic back. But it was too late. The church was buzzing. Old rumors resurfaced. Eyes darted between pews. And then, someone screamed. From the hallway. Marcia, Evelyn's best friend, came stumbling in, face pale. "The casket," she whispered. "Y'all, it's not sealed." Everyone turned. The funeral director rushed to the front. Hands shaking. Sweat dripping. Opened the lid. And froze. James's body was there. Still. Silent. Peaceful. But underneath his folded hands, tucked between his suit jacket and the satin lining, was a small, black notebook. None of the funeral staff had seen it. No one placed it there. It wasn't listed in the burial inventory. Evelyn stepped forward. Opened the notebook. Inside, names. Dates. Codes. And one page, marked with a red X. Basement. Church. Tile 17. Evelyn didn't wait. At 1 a.m., she returned to the church. Marcia came too. Flashlight in hand. They unlocked the back door. Slipped into the sanctuary. Every creak echoed like thunder. Down the hall, past the office, into the back utility room. There it was. The old tile floor. They counted. Tile 17. Slightly cracked. Off color. They pried it loose. Underneath? A rusted trapdoor. The metal door groaned as they pulled it open. Stairs led down into darkness. Musty. Damp. They descended slowly. It wasn't a basement. Not really. It was a crawl space. Maybe 8 by 10 feet. Walls lined with old hymn books. Christmas decorations. Water-stained Bibles. And in the corner? A locked filing cabinet. Marcia picked it open with a hairpin. Inside. Birth certificates. Insurance policies. Bank slips. And then, a folder labeled Grace. Confidential. Inside the folder were a medical chart. And a certificate that didn't make sense. Name, Grace Holloway. Date of birth, June 3, 2019. Father, Pastor David Holloway. But Evelyn knew the truth. Grace wasn't David's daughter. She was James's. And the mother? A name Evelyn hadn't heard in years. Lydia Carter. The pastor's niece. Sent away suddenly in 2018. No explanation. No one knew why. Until now. One last item lay at the bottom of the folder. A letter. Not from James, but from Lydia. I was told to lie. Told to disappear. Told to name someone else as the father. But it wasn't him. It was James. I didn't know what they'd do. I didn't think they'd. Please protect Grace. Evelyn folded the letter with shaking hands. They climbed back up. Locked the hatch. Left everything as it was. But as they stepped outside, the white truck was there again. Its headlights flashed twice. Then it drove away, slow. Silent. And on the church door behind them was a single word, spray-painted in red. Run. The video hit TikTok first. Then Twitter. Then church Facebook pages started deleting comments. You've probably seen the clip. Pallbearer swaying to Marvin Gaye. Evelyn in white. Eyes closed. Hands lifted. Dancing behind her husband's casket. People didn't know what to think. Was it madness? Was it grace? Or something deeper? Back in the sanctuary, Evelyn stepped back up. Voice still clear. Still steady. People ask how I can dance while burying the love of my life. I ask, how can I not? She didn't cry. Didn't collapse. She testified. Grief in the black community ain't like theirs. We don't get casseroles and therapy retreats. The congregation was still. Even the doubters leaned in. We bury our sons and then show up for work Monday. We sing while folding funeral suits. We cook for the repast with swollen eyes and stitched hearts. They say it's strange to dance at a funeral, Evelyn said. But our ancestors danced through shackles. We sang while picking cotton. We sang when they hung us. We sang when they burned down our churches. It's in our blood to praise in pain. That line hit hard. Even the old deacons were nodding now. This wasn't chaos. It was a reckoning. Outside, the sun blazed. Inside, the truth burned hotter. The band started up again. No sad hymn. No soft piano. Stevie Wonder. As, one by one, people joined in. Women clapping. Men swaying. Children giggling as they stomped the floor. The coffin was lifted, carried out on shoulders like royalty. Not a body being buried, a life being honored. Outside, in the grass, folks linked arms. And danced. Not out of joy. But defiance. But not everyone joined in. Some whispered. Disrespectful. Unholy. Out of order. One elder folded her arms and said, "That girl's hiding something." And somewhere in the back, the man in the gray suit stood beside a tree. Still watching. Still silent. Evelyn saw him. This time, she didn't look away. After the service, Evelyn sat alone on the church steps. Her white dress now stained with dust and sweat. She clutched the folder. Grace's birth certificate. Lydia's letter. And James's final note. She knew the truth was dangerous. But so was silence. "He didn't die naturally," she whispered. "They killed his joy. And now, they're coming for mine." Marcia came running. "Evelyn, look." The church office had been broken into. Files scattered. Cabinets pried open. But nothing taken. Except one thing. The key to the old baptismal records. Pastor David's private vault. Evelyn's voice cracked. "They're scrubbing the past. Trying to erase proof." Marcia whispered, "Why now?" Then the phone rang. Blocked number. She answered. No words. Just breathing. Then a voice. "He shouldn't have written that letter." Click. They weren't just being watched. They were being warned. But it was too late. Because Evelyn had already made copies. Already sent them out. To lawyers. To reporters. To a podcast team. And one more person. The real father of another child. One connected to the same hidden web. But she didn't expect what came next. Sunday morning. The pews were full. Pastor David stood tall behind the pulpit. But his hands trembled. He opened his Bible. But instead of a sermon, he stared at the front row. At Evelyn. At Grace. "We all make mistakes," he began. "Sometimes, to protect the ones we love." People looked confused. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. He wasn't preaching. He was confessing. But halfway through, a woman stood up in the back. Young. Nervous. Hair pulled into a tight bun. "That's not what you told me," she shouted. "You said James was the reason I got sent away." Gasps. Evelyn's mouth fell open. It was Lydia. Alive. Back. Holding a toddler with familiar eyes. "You said I'd ruin everything if I stayed. But you ruined him." Chaos. Shouting. Crying. Phones recording. Pastor David stood frozen. Face pale. Collar soaked in sweat. Evelyn stood too. Walked forward. "Tell them. Tell them who Grace really is. Tell them what you did to James." But he didn't answer. Because someone else did. From the choir door, she entered. Older. Regal. Wearing a black veil. The congregation fell silent. Marcia whispered. "That's Judge Carter's wife, what's she doing here?" The woman lifted the veil. Eyes red. Voice sharp. "I warned you, David. You should have buried the truth when you had the chance." Evelyn stepped back. Because she remembered now. The initials on the first envelope James left behind. E.C. Not Evelyn Carter. Estelle Carter. Judge Carter's wife. The real matriarch. The woman who had everything to lose. And everything to hide. The sanctuary sat in stunned silence. Evelyn still stood. Lydia still held her child. And Estelle Carter, the woman behind the veil, had just shattered a decade of secrets with 7 words. "You should have buried the truth when you had the chance." People whispered. Others wept. One man fainted. Another prayed. But Evelyn? She smiled. Not because it was over. But because they had finally started listening. What followed happened fast. The church board resigned within 48 hours. Pastor David vanished from the parsonage. Grace's DNA test results leaked. James was not her father. But he knew. He knew and he loved her anyway. And the funeral? Clipped. Shared. Blown into a storm of headlines. Dancing widow defies tradition, reveals cover-up at church funeral. But while the world watched the viral clips, they missed the revolution happening in real time. Reporters showed up. Microphones out. Cameras flashing. Why were you dancing? Wasn't it disrespectful? Don't you regret causing a scene? Evelyn answered once. Only once. That wasn't a scene. That was salvation. That was us refusing to bury one more black man without telling the full story. And then she walked away. Back into her house. Back into the quiet. Back into the storm behind the headlines. What the press never shared was the last page of James's letter. The one Evelyn only read after everyone was gone. It said, "When they come for your joy, you dance louder. When they question your grief, you sing louder. When they try to shame your love, you love louder. Promise me, don't bury me in silence. Make them hear us." The shoes Evelyn wore that day? Red heels. They weren't random. They were James's favorite. He used to joke, "When you wear those, even my sorrow forgets itself." They squeaked on the church floor, echoed louder than any sermon. A reminder that her mourning would not be muted. Not for their comfort. Not for their approval. Those red heels? They weren't fashion. They were armor. What Evelyn started wasn't about a funeral. It was about freedom. Freedom to grieve loudly. Freedom to uncover lies. Freedom to demand more than whispered apologies and polite funerals. She didn't just say goodbye. She declared war on the silence that follows Black Death. "We cry enough when they're alive," she said. "Let us laugh when they're free." But not everyone celebrated. Anonymous threats showed up. Notes in her mailbox. Cars idling outside her house at night. One read, "You should have kept it sacred." Another, "He died quiet. You should have stayed that way." But Evelyn? She turned her porch lights on brighter. She kept dancing. Because the truth was no longer just hers. It belonged to all of us. Within a month, others followed. Funerals turned into celebrations. Black families played Nina Simone instead of dirges. Grief became public. Loud. Beautiful. TikToks. Reels. Articles. #Red Heels Rising began trending. Evelyn was invited to speak at universities, churches, even prisons. But she said no. She wasn't a brand. She was a widow with a mission. And James? He'd gotten the send-off white America never expected. The next time Evelyn walked into that church, it wasn't for a funeral. It was for Grace's dedication. This time, she wore yellow. Bright. Unapologetic. Glowing. And when the new pastor asked if she wanted to say a few words, she nodded. And said, "Joy isn't disrespect. It's resurrection." So when you see the video again, the red heels, the music, the dancing, don't mistake her joy for disrespect. It was a revolution in red heels. A woman choosing liberation over tradition, truth over silence, and love over shame. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story shocked you, like and subscribe to True Crime Series for more cases that expose the darkest corners of human nature.